So again, I want you to get a lot more than a train ride. I'm going to tell you a lot of history, and hopefully we'll have some fun too. Turn around and say hi to John. Well, you notice John just couldn't see it. And you're on the only railway in the world where our engineer can't see in front of the coach. Did you know that? So besides being your entertainment, my more important job is keeping you safe. So I'm up here keeping my eyes on the tracks to make sure there's no obstructions like a moose. Occasionally we find somebody's wife tied to the tracks. And when we get up to the switches, I need to make sure they're set on properly so that we don't derail. So I'll take care of those minor details and hopefully keep you entertained. We would like you to get a lot more than a train ride. We want you to have a very memorable day and kind of the larger Cog Railway experience. You know, everybody asks me, how fast are we going to go today? John just sounded the horn to let us know that we've reached our top speed. This is all you're going to get. A whole 4 or 5 miles an hour, that's it. So I'm going to start off this morning by telling you some history of our founder, Sylvester Marsh. This guy was a character. He was an eccentric. And sometimes a lunatic, but he was brilliant, very brilliant guy. He was born in 1802 on a farm down by Waterville Valley. Born an entrepreneur, and as he grew up, he outperformed every kid he grew up with. So by the time he was in his late teens, he was off the charts brilliant. So his parents sent him down to the university in Boston, where he earned an engineering degree. And from there, he went straight to work in Quincy Market. Who's familiar with Quincy Market? That's it? Where's everybody else from? Where? State New York, okay. Well, for those of you who are familiar with Quincy Market, in the early 1800s, it wasn't what it is today. In fact, you wouldn't want to go near the place. It was Boston's slaughterhouse. That's where everybody brought their livestock to be slaughtered, the meat processed and packaged up and distributed back to the Boston area. Now back then they had no refrigeration, child labor, a lot of industrial accidents swept under the rug, and most important of all, diseases galore. Just an overall horrible place to work. But Sylvester established himself as a young up-and-coming engineer, making many process and safety improvements to the industry. And then the gold rush hit in America. So Sylvester ended up jumping on a train in Boston, and he headed to California just like everybody else to make their big fortunes. On his way, he had a layover in Chicago. And that was a big game changer. He's in Chicago one day, looking out at the plains and the wild livestock and how the railroads are connecting our country. And he comes up with this idea that he's so committed to that he cancels his California trip and he settles in Chicago, where the population was just 300 people. And that idea was to start up his own meatpacking operation, partner up with the railroads, and have the railroads distribute his meat products all across the United States, even back to Quincy Market. Now that had never been done before, and it was kind of viewed impossible. Local butchers in Chicago made fun of him. Who's this crazy kid? What a ridiculous idea. Imagine what condition the meat's going to be in by the time it reaches California or the East Coast. Well, Sylvester, you know, he was an entrepreneur. He didn't have everything quite figured out, but he had a lot of innovative ideas. And the first thing he did was invent the nation's first steam-powered grain elevator. And to preserve grain, they're all over the Midwest now. You know the big grain towers you see? He invented the very first one. He also invented steam-powered refrigeration. And he invented America's first steam-powered mass production facility, fully integrated, where the livestock came in one end, out the other end came packaged meat in a refrigerated container, ready to go off on the railroads. And he also restructured the meat packing industry to what it is today, with the stockyards and whole bit. So in that 10 years, he became a billionaire and established himself as the father of the modern day meat packing industry. So he ended up staying out there a total of 28 years. And by then, he grew that company into the largest meat packing operation in North America. And by then, he was also a multi-billionaire. That's where this guy earned all of his money. Now again, he was unpredictable, eccentric. One day, without telling anybody, he sells his company. And he decides he's coming back to New Hampshire to retire. When he got back here, retirement was totally out of the question because he was an entrepreneur that couldn't sit still. Always had to be doing something. So he started looking for another career. Most of the ideas he threw out had never been done, so some people were laughing at him. Others were saying, that's impossible. And in his frustration, he decided to take a hike to the summit of Mount Washington one day, which nobody ever did. Usually anybody that tried it, you never saw him again. There were no hiking trails, no nothing. But he made it on a nice, luckily he had a nice sunny day. When he got up there, he could see 100 miles in every direction. So this is the kind of guy he is. He comes down and he announces that he's figured out what he's going to do. He's going to buy up half of the mountain, and he's going to invent the world's first mountain climbing railway to the summit of Mount Washington for tourism, because he felt everybody should have the opportunity to enjoy the views that he did. That was considered a real ridiculous idea. This was an impossible railroad in the middle of nowhere. There were no railroads to get over here, no roads to get over here, and no tourism industry either. But against all those odds, he spent the next 10 years experimenting with non-railroad technology, and he failed over and over again. And during that time, to his advantage, the tourism industry developed up here. They built a railroad link from Littleton over to all the grand hotels they were putting up, like the Mount Washington Hotel and the Crawford Hotel, Fabian House. If you're familiar with the Mount Washington Hotel, we had 33 of those in the heyday up here. So it turned out to be perfect. They're all built for the wealthiest people in our country. Turned out to be a great market for this railroad. So one day he's looking at his bicycle, he's fixing it, and he notices the sprocket and chain, and he has an aha moment. He's thinking about how strong it is. He can get a grown-up around the city, and with his engineering background, he decides that he can borrow that concept and engineer it up and up and up and up and up and up as far as he needs to until it's strong enough to get a train up the steep grades of Mount Washington. That was his theory. Well, everybody laughed at him again. They called Sylvester a lunatic. They called him Crazy Sylvester. They made fun of him, asking him why he's throwing his fortune away on such an impossible project. But obviously he didn't quit. He was so committed that in 1866 he founded the Mount Washington Railway Company. That's the significance of the date on the side of your benches. And believe it or not, we still work for the same company 160 years later. How many companies in America can you think of that are 160 years old? Well, that year he built Peppersass as an experimental steam engine, integrating his cog concept, and an older set of tracks integrating the rack idea. Later in 1866, he made it up to the water tank you'll see in a couple minutes. The power to spare, proving out his engineering design. So he immediately decides, we're going to the summit. We can do this, we're not waiting. He hires 250 Civil War veterans, and they built this railway in less than 3 years. Now remember, no bulldozers, no excavators, no power tools. This entire railway was built with oxen, sledgehammers, and sheer manpower. And just 3 short years later, in 1869, Sylvester Marsh took his first coach of paying passengers safely up to our summit and back. So 1869 is our birthday, 157 years ago. That's why you're on a piece of history. Since 1869, the Cog Railway has taken millions and millions of people to the summit and has grown to become the Northeast's largest and most popular tourist attraction. So there you have it, a little bit of history about our railway and our eccentric founder and inventor, Sylvester Marsh. Arriving at Wambach Station in a few minutes. When we get up here, we have a firekeeper, Ray, who has a nice fire going for you. You can huddle around the fire and stay nice and warm. We have complimentary hot chocolate, hot coffee, and marshmallows. You can roast some marshmallows over the fire. I'll be up here with you if you have any questions about the landmarks. We got like 90-mile views behind us looking into Vermont, New York. You won't believe it. Now, for your own safety, do not go on the tracks. They're very slippery and you can split your head open or fall between the cross members and break a leg or an arm or a shoulder. So no going on the tracks, okay? We'll be up here about a half hour. I'll blow the horn and we'll head back to Wambach Station. Marshfield Station, sorry. So with that, welcome to Wambach Station.